All right. Hi, I'm Ross Benjamin. Welcome to another edition of the Winner's Circle. It's Friday, November 27th, and as always, I'm joined by my trusted cohort in professional sports handicapper out of the great city of Las Vegas, Nevada, Mr. Chip Chirimbes. Chip, how was your Thanksgiving, buddy?
Well, it was great. The city may be working at 25% capacity, but I was 100% yesterday. That's for sure. I had a great
Well, you
time.
were. I mean, and you went 2-0 in the NFL as well, so you
No, no,
definitely,
no, no.
no.
I got beat with Detroit, and
Oh,
I
okay.
won with Washington. Uh,
I'm sorry. I
They
thought you.
stole the Ravens game from us, and I replaced it with Detroit. And you know what happened? I got
Yeah.
that turkey bone stuck in my throat. So
Yeah, boy, oh boy. Yeah, you said it the other day on our Wednesday broadcast, I believe it was. If it
yeah,
wasn't Wednesday, it was Tuesday, that you don't know how Detroit has won 4 games this year, you
I
know?
can't figure it out.
And, sometimes I'm guilty of the same thing. Sometimes we don't practice what we preach,
Yeah. I
but
mean, it was so typical of them too. They jump out to that 7-0 lead, and then they stop Houston, get the ball back. In the first play, they get the ball back.
pick
He throws
six.
it right to AJ Watt or JJ Watt or
And then they get,
Watt, but it's
yeah,
touchdown, pick six.
then they get the ball back and fumble on their own 23 on the ensuing drive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
it's a total disaster. And you know, Patricia hasn't even won. His winning percentage is less than 33%.
yeah.
How do you go beyond 3 years with this? So
And again,
they have 6 games remaining. We'll see what happens.
right, and we joked and you brought it up and said, Ross, if you want to become an NFL head coach, be a defensive coordinator first,
Yeah.
because we look what Romeo Crennel, one of the worst defenses in
Yeah.
football in Houston the last 2 years, he gets promoted on an interim basis. And then Raheem Morris does the same in Atlanta. In this particular instance, when we're speaking about Detroit, you got a guy who came in, he got this job as a head coach because of his reputation of being a defensive guru when he was
Yeah.
with New England. And since he's been there, Chip, not only the record you just alluded to, they can't stop anybody.
Well, Ross, I'm watching yesterday. I mean, kind of forced to, but there's 7, 8, 10 yards distance between the defensive back and the receiver. That
Yeah.
one play, I mean, never mind the halfback option stuff like that, but the one play where he just had the back come out and run to the flag, and he beat the
Yeah.
defender by 10 yards. I mean, it was just
It was,
easy.
twice that happened with
Yeah,
Duke
right.
Johnson.
The same guy. And so
Yeah.
they knew they had a weak spot there. And you have to make an adjustment. You have to give that guy help, or there has to be some kind of move you can make as a coach to try and stop that from happening. I mean, it isn't even like he closed the gap on the second TD. It
No,
was still 10
exactly.
yards.
Once you understand, right? But
Yeah.
twice, there's no excuse. And
Yeah.
it's not like it's not been an ongoing issue with Detroit. It just seems that he's terrible. He sticks to a game plan that's not working defensively, and he's terrible at tweaking his game
Yeah.
plan in
Yeah.
midstream. So anyway, enough of Detroit. We got
Yeah.
better matchups to
We're
talk
done with
about.
them.
Yes. All right, let's start on Sundays. This is going to be our NFL late edition
Okay.
show, and we're going to be taking a look first at the Arizona Cardinals taking on the New England Patriots, an East Coast game, 1 p.m. Eastern time start. And right now, as we speak, the Arizona Cardinals are either a 1 or 1.5 point road favorite, depending on where you look, Chipper, and what New England team is going to show up. And Arizona, how are they going to respond after losing to Seattle in a key divisional matchup last week? Your take.
Well, we were happy to have Seattle win. We had that game. It was very fortunate to cover. Um, safeties, all kinds of different things happen, but that's why we call it gambling. So
Yeah.
Seattle beats Arizona, and I think majority of people might have been on Arizona or split. This week, I think they're really gravitating toward the Cardinals because of their number one offense, Ross. They got the number one offense in the NFL. They're averaging 415 yards a game. And this Kyler Murray, of course, I mean, how could you not love the guy? I mean,
No.
you just what happened last week was Seattle we kept him in the box. He only had 15 yards rushing. And I think that was the big difference because he's averaging close to 70 yards, I think, or that's about an average day for him when he picks the ball up and runs. But New England, they did what they were supposed to do. They went to Houston and got beat as a favorite. Now to return home as an underdog. I think they may have the numbers a little mixed up here. I didn't quite get Arizona being favored on the road, Ross. I think that New England is worthy enough with their rushing game. It's 154 yards a game. They're fourth in the NFL. I was surprised they were a dog, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona's defense statistically is pretty good. I think they're around the number 11 in scoring defense anyway. But if you look at, how they've done lately, they've given up some yards. I mean, Seattle moved the ball on them. Not as much as Seattle is used
Yeah, they moved the ball on everybody.
Yeah. And then Buffalo racked up a lot of yards on them. If they didn't get that miracle play from DeAndre Hopkins at the end of the Buffalo game, they'd be coming into this week with a 3-game losing streak, Chip. So, playing the devil's advocate, the Cardinals are 3-2 on the road this year. I'm going to be looking at the total in this game, be honest with you. I'm seeing – yeah, I mean, you're looking at an Arizona team that's gone under the total in all 4 road games this year, and the New England Patriots have gone under the total in 4 of their 5 home games. Chip, you look at New England and their defensive statistics, they're not the defense they were a season ago. They're a far cry from that for several reasons. But, you're still facing Bill Belichick, who, as opposed to Matt Patricia, is a defensive genius. So do you think that might come into play at all? I mean, especially when defending a quarterback like the caliber of Murray?
Well, I think the thing we haven't even mentioned is Cam Newton. He's capable. I mean, we know he's on the back end of his career, as are a number of quarterbacks that are playing for playoff contending teams. And he can come up with a pretty good effort here, both running and throwing the ball. This Arizona defense, like you said, was suspect last time. So if Cam can find some open spaces and manage to avoid tripping over those yard stripes, they might come up and really give the Cardinals some more than they bargained for.
Chipper, I mentioned this on a previous show I did earlier today, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this.
All right.
When you handicap Carolina when they had Cam Newton in his heyday, which wasn't too long ago. I mean, he's, I think, 3 years removed from being the NFL MVP. Sometimes we tend to forget that. But when you handicap that game, you looked at, okay, how could we stop Cam Newton if we're going to go with the other side? Are they going to be able to contain him in the pocket? If they do so, are they going to be able to stop the aerial game against Carolina? Because
not that way now.
No, now if you put too much stock in Cam Newton when you handicap a New England game, you're not on the right track. I mean, you have to look at other facets of how New England can cover or win the game. Follow along with what I'm saying here? And do you agree or disagree?
No, I agree. And we've been fading him all along and winning. But, sometimes he can't come up with that game where he runs the ball. And you always have Belichick, who's going to devise a game plan that's going to attack the weakness of the opposition. And so I could see Cam Newton having 50-50 type of season where he'll have not say the absolutely worst game, but he might have 50% of his games might be good outings, pretty good outings. And this might be one of them. As you said, the Arizona defense, 3 of the last 4 times out has been very suspect. So, or 2 of the last 3, I'm not sure which goes by me so fast, Ross, and you hit me.
Yeah, no, I think the viewers and listeners know exactly what you're alluding to. And, again, I guess to put it into perspective, the onus of responsibility of Cam Newton taking a team and carrying it on its shoulders and winning games by himself, stealing games by himself, those days are over. No. Like Chipper said, he could have that occasional good game. But if your mindset is, I'm going to take New England because I think Cam Newton will single-handedly be instrumental in them covering. I think you're way off track if you have that mindset, Chip.
You know, he was an inconsistent passer to start with. I mean, better than Lamar Jackson with the Ravens, but he was a great running back, playing the quarterback position. And, you know, he's taken a beating over the years. And the last 2 seasons, you know, he's been gimpy, had operations, he's been hurt. And his effectiveness, I mean, do you think, Ross, that he's anywhere above 75 to 80% of what he once was? And if that, you know, and so, you know, when you're one-dimensional like he was, where the running game was say 80% of his game, when you're losing that, I don't think you can pick it up on the other side. And we know he's weak passing the ball. He is not an accurate passer, and they have to come up with some kind of ground game to win this one.
Well, and, you know, another point is, remember his days in Carolina, he had a wide receiver named Steve Smith, who was a game breaker. And he also had a tight end named Greg Olson, who's probably a future Hall of Famer. So at the end of the day, in his defense, New England's wide receiver core is lacking in a lot of ways. And, you know, yes, I get Julian Edelman's been out, but Julian Edelman is not a deep threat, Chip, for the most part.
He should be your number 3 guy, you know? I mean,
number 2 at best. Okay. Yeah. And a guy who lines up in the slot and can catch some balls.
You know, he's a go-to guy, Ross, on that third down when you need that yardage. He's a possession type of player. He's not the explosive Randy Moss who they've had. But, you know, this there's not too much we can do with Cam Newton. He is what he is, and if he can run the ball effectively, then he might be able to complete some passes. But this is I think New England's in bad shape to start with. We mentioned this early in the year, and that you know, getting Newton, I mean, that was a surprise to everyone.
It was desperation, in my opinion. I mean, up until a month before the season, they were destined to go with their backup there. The kid from Baylor.
Well, they had the kid from Auburn who was supposed to start, and I was never impressed with him when he was playing with the Tigers, as it was.
And Stidham, Jarrett Stidham. Yep, he was at Baylor and Auburn. Yep. So, but you know, it tells you that Belichick was not confident going into the year with Stidham, and he took like Chip just alluded to, a 75% Cam Newton over what he had.
You know, I got to give him credit because he didn't panic. He sat there and he hung on to the very end. And when Newton came available at the price at $1 or $2 million, whatever it is, it probably was a very good move for the franchise. Maybe the other quarterbacks can develop it. And you know, they're wheeling this guy out every week, and they're wheeling him back off the field every week. So one season for the Patriots is probably just a stopgap measure that they need. I think they knew from the beginning that they weren't playoff bound, really.
Yeah. And, you know, I said desperation, but by the same token, it was a very low risk and possible high reward.
Yes.
So let's go to the next game here. We're going to look at the New York Giants will go on the road to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. And, you know, here's the thing. The Giants, right in the thick of the NFC East race, now find themselves a half a game behind Washington, who's now 4-7. The Giants are 3-7. Actually, they're not. Washington's not in first. Philadelphia remains in first.
I think that Washington passes them, really.
No, because Philadelphia's 4-6-1. So, in Washington's 4-7, if I'm not mistaken. In any event, they're still in the thick of things, right? And
not 3. Oh yeah, right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and the Giants are a 6-point road favorite in this contest at Cincinnati. Now, here's the thing. Joe Burrow makes a big difference in this line. There's no two ways about it. And now Cincinnati, who was decided to use their third-string starting quarterback in this game over Ryan Finley, who was their backup and who played last week in Burrow's absence. And the Giants, as you touched upon on many occasions, have been an excellent money team on the road.
Yeah.
But Chipper,
Yeah.
90, I believe, if not all, a vast majority of those situations have been as a road underdog, not as a road favorite. As a matter of fact, over the last few seasons, I can't even remember the Giants being a home favorite of -6, let alone a road favorite of -6. What's your take on this one? It's a tricky one.
Yeah, it is. And Joe Burrow being out, of course, is the storyline, and Brandon Allen's going to take his place. Where did Brandon Allen go? Did he go to Texas A&M, Ross? Is that where he was?
Yeah, I believe he did.
And I'm not saying he's Johnny Manziel, but
Yeah.
he's had some starts in this league, and fairly capable. The problem with the 2-7 Cincinnati team here is how is the morale?
Yeah.
After losing Burrow, I mean, they were only 2-7, though 6-4 against the number. And like you said, the Giants 1-4 on the road, but 5-0 against the points, but all as underdogs, Ross.
Right.
And it was the first thing. This is one of the reasons I wanted to, just tell you that this is like. I think if you're supposed to play this game, you're supposed to play Cincinnati. Whether I'm quarterbacking, you're quarterbacking, anybody's quarterbacking. The Giants had turmoil. They fired their offensive line coach this week because him and Joe Judge were having issues about the rotation of the players. And it was a very heated argument. And, players take sides in that type of thing. There had to be linemen that were in favor of the coach, and there had to be linemen that were happy to see him go. So there's issues there right now in New York, and let's see if our boy Daniel Jones is deep sea six locker. He puts us in this deep six locker with his interception returns continuously, 2 straight games without turning the ball over. I don't know how it's going to happen here. I think the Giants are a false favorite to me here, even though they're probably better than Cincinnati, and they have more motivation, and they have their starting quarterback too.
Yeah, and that speaks volumes, making that move, getting rid of your offensive line coach at this juncture of the season.
Right.
And when you said heated, I would think it's even more heated than that, if that's possible.
They said that it, not that it came to blows, but there was, I imagine that the man who was being told he had to leave the premises because he was told to go to HR was ready to put his hands on head coach Joe Judge in New York. Yeah. I listen to the fan every night just to get the New York perspective, what's going on, and they're all over this story. And and the thing they were complaining about is here's the Giants starting to gel,
yes,
and starting to play, and
especially the running game, Chipper.
I mean. This Goldman from Clemson, the running game is really developed.
Right.
And so now who knows? This could throw a monkey wrench at them. And by the way, they're only a half game behind Washington, but they have the tiebreaker against the Redskins. They defeated them twice this season.
Yes.
So if Philadelphia falls on Monday night to Seattle, which they're 6.5-point dog, 5-point dog at home, could very well happen. Washington and the Giants could be tied for first, with the Giants owning the tiebreaker.
Yeah, and if you look at the Giants' running game over the last 5 games, 132 yards against Washington, 160 yards at Philadelphia, 101 yards against Tampa Bay, who's been number 1 against the run for 2 years now.
Yeah.
At Washington, again, we saw what kind of defense they've had. They have yesterday, and what kind of defense they've had all year. Another 166-yard rushing effort against the Redskins. And then last week in their win, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, in their win over Philadelphia, 151 yards rushing. So it's not like the Giants running game was suffering,
Yeah, well,
so there had to be some philosophical differences, as you alluded to, for that to reach the head it did in recent days.
Yeah, I can tell you, they're 2 running backs. Goldman, the kid from Clemson, I think it's his 4th year or 5th year, finally getting a chance with Saquon Barkley going down. And their other running back, whose name eludes me right now, they run hard.
Yeah.
They run, and they hit that hole. And Barkley, as great as he wasn't that kind of a runner. He wasn't a slam into the line type guy. Where this Goldman, I'm really impressed with him. I really am, because he's giving that extra effort after he gets hit. And he's looking to get that extra yardage every time he carries the ball. I think he's very appreciative of the opportunity, Ross.
Yes.
And he's making the best of it.
He's running angry, is what I call it. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
he's running like he's pissed off, and
yeah.
you know, give the Giants credit. You know, not a lot of people. Everybody was counting them out, but you know, they were competitive in a lot of their losses as well. Like
Whoa.
you know, they went through a stretch where they lost 3 straight games by 3 points or less, I think, or somewhere in that area.
Yeah, no, they could have 3 wins easily, more.
Yep.
And they played the Steelers tough. They lost to the Bears by a field goal when the Bears were playing football earlier in the year. So the Giants all along have been playing probably better than anyone else in the NFC East overall, game by game, if you want to see the effort and compare it. But right now, Ross, I think Washington is the best team in that division.
Well, the way they've looked yesterday in the last couple games, I would tend to agree with you, but the Giants fans will give you the argument. Look at what we've done in the last 2 games. We've been awfully impressive as well. I mean,
Yeah,
you
no
look
question.
at beating Washington and Philadelphia, 2 games they had to have within the division. They won at Washington as a 3-point underdog. And like I said, and keep in mind, too, the Giants are coming off a bye week on top of that. And to Chipper's point, as far as the Giants go on the road, think about this, folks. Since 2018, the Giants have gone 17-4 against the spread on the road.
Wow.
17-4. However, they only won 6 of those 21 games outright. And the last I checked, when you're a road favorite to cover, you need to win the game outright.
Yeah, absolutely. You got a clue there, buddy.
So, in any event, 3 times out of those 21 games, they were a road favorite. They covered 2 of those 3. So, again, a game I'm probably not going to use, Chipper, but a game I'm certainly looking at watching with great interest.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny that the worst division in football is turning up to be one of the more interesting ones because Philadelphia's falling like a lead balloon. Washington's emerging, the Giants are emerging, and Dallas, they go to Minnesota, win there, and can't win at home on Thanksgiving Day. I mean, who knows? I think they seem to be in big trouble, aren't they?
Think about this: Washington, the New York Giants, the Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles. One of those teams will be hosting a playoff game in the opening week of the NFL playoffs. Anyway, next game, we're down to about 10 minutes here, so
all right. We'll make it
sorry
quick.
we got so in depth on those 2 games, but hey, you know what? There was a lot to talk about, a lot of interesting angles to look at each one of those contests. Anyway,
and then we had to talk about personnel as well. I mean, going over
absolutely
the status of Cam Newton.
Yeah.
So what do we got now?
Here's a game where we don't have to worry about personnel because they're pretty much intact. Tennessee at Indianapolis. These teams met a few weeks back on a Thursday night in Tennessee, and the Colts waxed them 34-17, outplayed them in all 3 facets of the game. And Indianapolis opened as a 4-point favorite here. They're down to 3. And the majority of money and volume of bets have come in on Tennessee. And again, I go back to this, Chipper. Tennessee played on national television last week against Baltimore, I believe, and won the game outright. Game that was a high-profile game, let's put it this way, where a lot of people had watched the game. And they win the game outright as an underdog. Now they come on the road against an Indianapolis team, to me, which is very dangerous going forward. I really think so. And the big difference is quite simple to me, okay? Sometimes we overthink situations, Chip.
Right.
We talked about this earlier off air. If you break it down to the fact that if you look at both of these teams' offensive numbers, they're eerily similar, okay?
Right.
But you look at the defensive numbers, not even in the same ballpark. Tennessee giving up 389 yards a game, and Indy giving up 298. Tennessee giving up 26 points per game, and Indy around 20 points per game. What's your take on this matchup?
Well, the moment I thought I saw the game, I remembered how we had Indy on that Thursday night, and
Yeah.
they were reeling at that time. Remember, the Colts looked like they were shaky, and they went in and they just manhandled Tennessee. And in that game, I think Tannehill threw for 147 yards. But the defense is the number 2 defense that the Colts are putting up at 298 yards allowed is going to, I think, going to be the difference here. The public sentiment, of course, is moving toward Tennessee. Even though the Colts won last week and beat Green Bay, they weren't all that impressive. I mean, it took a circumstances, a fumble in overtime for them to eke out that victory. So my gut feeling here is that the home team has the advantage here. The Colts, I think, may have all of a sudden put it together and starting to push toward the last 6 games of the season as playoff contenders should do. First year with Phillip Rivers, so now, they're coming together a little bit. The defense is the key, though. You mentioned it, number 2 in the NFL, and that's hard to overcome. If they can shut down Tannehill, or if they shut down Derrick Henry, then what's Tannehill going to do? So. I think they put a lot of pressure on the quarterback and get a lot of sacks as well, if I'm not mistaken. Them and Washington as well. But it's a tough game. It's a tough call. I don't know if I'll be using it. It's under consideration. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think I'm going to be using this game unless something drastically changes. And by the way, since Frank Reich took over as head coach in 2018. The Indianapolis Colts are 8-1 straight up and 7-1 against the spread as a home favorite of 3 or less, which they currently are. So just a side note,
Great.
So anyway, all right, couple more games to look at, and we don't have a lot of time.
Okay.
So we're going to have to go through these fairly quickly, not at a rapid pace, but fairly quickly. The LA Chargers at the Buffalo Bills. Another scary spot, I think, for Buffalo in this situation. They open as a 6-point favorite. Chip, they're down to 4 and 4.5 now, and they're coming off a week off. And the other thing is, the majority of money via volume of bets and money bet has gone on Buffalo, and yet we've seen some reverse line movement. Look, this is a 3-7 Chargers team. But their 7 losses have all come by 8 points or fewer.
Yeah, they're 1-4 on the road, but 3-2 against the number, which is very important. And they had the number 3 offense with a rookie quarterback out there, averaging 401 yards per game. Buffalo's defense is middle of the pack, and I even think it's a notch or 2 below the center line. And they're giving up like 350 yards a game defensively. So I can see this game going over the total. I'm not going to knock myself out yet about having a side. I think that when you got Josh Allen, who's second in the conference in passing, and Herbert and the Chargers are number 3, this game could go over easily. Well, checking the weather, of course. I mean, if you're going to get hit.
The weather's not bad, Chip. It's supposed to be 45 degrees clear, winds 10 to 11 miles an hour, which might be considered high in some cities at this time of year, but not in Buffalo, right?
Well, these 2 guys can throw the ball. So the wind does affect quarterbacks, but these 2 guys are strong enough. And I think this game goes over the total here in Buffalo.
Yeah. And Buffalo's had difficulty stopping the run this year. And just a side note, Austin Eckler looks like he might return to play. And they sorely need him because last week against the Jets at home, 26 carries for 29 yards. That's not going to get it done. And that was against an 0-10 Jets team. So, all right, let's move on to the next one here, if we may. Miami, speaking of the Jets, the Miami Dolphins at the New York Jets. Now, why are you guys talking about an 0-10 team playing a 6-4 team? Well, Miami's a 7-point favorite. And you know what? They're 6.5 in a couple places now. And the New York Jets coming in with an 0-10 record. Miami 6-4, like I touched upon. Yet, why are we talking about this, Chip?
Because the Jets might actually win this game. This is, I think, one of their best chances on the season. Their play has gradually improved. And, except for these absolutely horrid and silly personal foul penalties after the plays are over. This team just seems to get 3 or 4 of them a game. You do one of those every quarter, you're destroying a drive of your own or aiding a drive of someone else's, most likely to score. But they're giving everything they can. They're also, the Jets are sitting there, and as long as they don't have that Darnold quarterbacking, Flacco can play in the major leagues. He's not going to move around too well. I think the Jets are last in offense and last in passing, and that may have a lot to do with their head coach as well and their offensive game plan. But I don't know. I have a lean toward the Jets here. I call them the green slime, and I call you the gangrene, and and I hate them, but. This might be a spot for them because, by the way, why don't you tell everyone about Miami's offense, how they're doing?
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, they've won 5 of their last 6. Their 5-game win streak came to an end last week at Denver. And by the way, folks, they were a road favorite in that game, which that takes on a whole different animal when you're talking about a team on the uprising like Miami had been as a road favorite compared to a road dog. You're no longer sneaking up on people, right? But their offensive doldrums continue. Last week against Denver, a Denver defense, Chipper, that had been struggling going into that game, they only had 223 yards of total offense, and about 40 of those came on the last drive. So, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Russ. I wanted to get this out before I forget. They're 29th in offense, 309 yards a game, which was absolutely atrocious. But their opposition is averaging. Now, this is a team 6-14 in 10 games. The opposition is averaging 75 yards more per game. Per game. That's like a touchdown a game. And how are they overcoming this? Big plays on defense, Ross, because their defense is actually in the middle of the pack. It's not the greatest, but they've converted turnovers into points and special teams into points. And, like I said, are they using lasers out there? Are they using mirrors? I don't know how long it's going to last. But Fitzpatrick will be in town, and New York's interested about that. But I think it's going to be the Tua show. And, he's been mediocre at best in his 4 starts.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just don't think that was a great move. And now he's got an injured left thumb. By the way, folks, he's a left-handed passer. And they're saying that he's going to be ready to go on Sunday, and if he's physically ready to go, he's going to play. So going back to Miami's offensive numbers and elaborating on what Chip just said, yeah, they're 5-1 in their last 6. Guess what, folks? 5 of those 6 games, they've gained less than 300 yards. So how you win like that is there's some luck involved. Yes, you are opportunistic. But as you and me both know, Chipper, playing opportunistic football, you have to mix in a little bit of offense too. Well, and they haven't done so. And
I love their camaraderie and the defense. These guys are playing together. You can tell that they're trusting each other, but they don't have enough. They just don't have enough.
Brian Flores is one of the brilliant young head coaches in football. I said that from the get-go. He showed me a lot when Miami got off to that 0-7 brutal start last year, Chip. Yeah. They were getting blown out by everybody, and the team did not quit on them.
No.
A less talented team than they have this year, by far. And they won 5 of their last 9 games, and they've carried it over to this year. But I give credit where credit's due. I'm also realistic. Them as a road favorite, a heck of a lot different than them as a road underdog or an underdog, period. I mean, look, the first 10 games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 5, 6, 8 times they were an underdog thus far, and just 2 times as a favorite. The game they did cover as a favorite, Chip, they were -1.5 at home against the Chargers. And the other game obviously was last week. I'm sorry, 3 times. They did cover against the Jets as an 8.5-point favorite at home. So, again, look, it's never that easy. I know it looks easy on paper when you got a 6-4 team against an 0-10 team. But like Chip alluded to, the New York Jets have covered their last 2 games. They only lost by 6 at the Chargers last week as a 10-point dog. The week before that on national TV, Monday night game, they lose by 3 to New England in a game they virtually had won as a 9-point underdog. They covered against Buffalo. So they've covered 3 of their last 4 games, Chipper. So
they're desperate. They don't want to go in 16. I mean, their lack of talent doesn't help, but what can we do about that?
Yeah. All right. So in closing here, Chip, we're running out of time here. So I'm going to ask you to tell the listeners and viewers exactly what you got going on in the future days to come.
Thank you, Russ. I have, of course, my Thanksgiving turkey shoot, and I'm posting 3 college football games on Friday and on Saturday with my Megabuck winner, my A-Play best bet leading the way. And, of course, coming off a 4-0 Sunday, we really got the NFL lined up here, Russ. You and I were both talking about what a great card we think we have this Sunday, and I'm looking forward to it right now. So we'll have a best bet winner and 3, if not 4, sides to go with it.
I'm
and
coming
you get
up.
all of this. Or you get all this, by the way, a day at a time at chipwins.com. Or if you go to chipwins.com, you can see a number. You get a hold of me personally. And if you're not interested in college or pro or whatever, we might be able to work out a special program for you.
Same here. You can go to rbwins.com. If you don't like what you see in terms of subscriptions, you can call me direct, 781-571-0299, 781-571-0299. I employ no salespeople. You'll talk to me and me directly, and I could take care of you. If you do like what you see, just keep in mind, if you purchase a 1-week or 1-month package from me, you get my personal guarantee. If you're not making a profit at the end of the expiration of that package, I will extend your package until you do. That's rbwins.com. And again, Chip's website is chipwins.com. Until the next time, folks, have a fantastic weekend. For myself and Chip Chirimbes, God bless and take care.